the emperor who fed prisoners to starving lions. Come with me into the beating heart of Rome. The day has barely ripened, yet already the streets are choked with voices and dust. The air is thick, heavy with summer heat, and the mingled smells of sweat, bread ovens, and spilled wine. From every quarter of the Eternal City, people surge toward one place. The great amphitheatre, the Colosseum, a mountain of stone raised by emperors to bind the people through blood and spectacle. The arches gape before us like the open jaws of some monstrous beast, swallowing the multitudes as they pour inside. Citizens press shoulder to shoulder, their tunics darkened with dust, their sandals scuffing the cobbles. Hawkers shout above the din, offering olives wrapped in leaves, roasted chickpeas, jugs of watered wine. The smell of fried fish mingles with incense from shrines hastily lit along the way. Everywhere, the same hunger. Not for food, but for violence. I guide you through the arch reserved for Rome's privileged. Here the crowd thins and the air changes. The harsh stink of sweat is drowned in perfumes of rose, and myrrh dabbed upon the throats of senators' wives. Cushions are carried by slaves, their faces expressionless as they prepare the benches of their masters. The murmur of noble conversation fills the air, forced laughter, sharp whispers, the endless calculations of men who live and die by proximity to power. And above all of us, enthroned beneath a canopy of Tyrian purple, sits the Emperor. His robe glimmers with golden thread, a diadem gleams upon his brow. His face is carved into stillness, his lips neither smile nor frown, yet every man within sight of him leans forward as if chained. It is not his command they await, but his gaze. To catch it and falter is death. The horns sound. Their long cry shakes the arches. 50,000 voices fall silent as if the very air itself has been commanded to still. From the far side of the arena, the gate creaks open. The prisoners emerge. Look at them. Thin, hollow-eyed, shackled in pairs. Some stumble into the blinding sunlight. Others squint and raise their manacled hands to shield their faces. Tunics hang in tatters from shoulders marked with bruises. Their steps are clumsy, dragged by chains that scrape across the sand. One is barely more than a boy, his jaw trembling as he looks upward at the canopy where the Emperor sits. Another is grey-haired, lips moving soundlessly in prayer. The herald steps forward, his staff in hand, his voice rising across the tiers. Behold the enemies of Rome, traitors who conspired, thieves who stole, rebels who lifted hands against the Emperor's peace. The crowd jeers. Pebbles are thrown. A woman spits from the tiers. Children clap their hands in delight. These men, guilty or not, have already been condemned not by trial but by the hunger of the mob. The Emperor raises his hand. Only that. A single motion. At once the jeers die. Even the children grow quiet. The silence that follows is thick and fearful, as though the city itself holds its breath. Then, the sound we have all been waiting for, though none dare admit it aloud, the crash of iron doors. From the darkness they come, lions, 6 beasts, ribs stark beneath golden fur, eyes burning with a hunger sharpened by days without food. Their growls roll beneath the arches, a sound older than Rome itself. They pace into the light with slow, heavy steps, tails lashing, jaws parting to show teeth yellowed with old blood. The stench of their musk drifts upward, reaching even the perfumed seats of the nobles. The prisoners recoil, chains clatter. One falls back, dragging the others with him. Another presses his bound hands together, pleading to gods who have never entered this place. The lions circle, clever and patient. They test the air, they sniff, they wait. The crowd leans forward as one, the amphitheatre a single body aching for the first strike. Then it comes. With a roar that shakes the stones, the first lion charges. He slams into the boy, the one who had stumbled to his knees. The boy raises his shackled hands in vain. Jaws close upon his shoulder. He's dragged screaming across the sand, his blood painting it red. The lion shakes him like a rag, and the scream ends. The crowd erupts, cheers, laughter, gasps. Roses are thrown from the higher tiers, petals drifting down like crimson snow. Another lion leaps. A prisoner is torn open, his entrails spilling across the seashell-strewn floor. The smell of iron fills the air, hot and nauseating. The crowd roars again. Some women cover their eyes but peek between their fingers. Children scream not in fear but in delight. And through it all, the Emperor does not blink. He leans forward, chin upon his fist, eyes fixed not upon the carnage, but upon the men seated nearest him. Senators, knights, councillors. He watches their faces with the patience of a hunter, seeking the flicker of horror, the tightening of a jaw, the glance away. For here lies the true spectacle, not the deaths of prisoners, but the measure of those who would serve him. The lions strike again and again. Screams mingle with growls. Chains clatter. Blood sprays. Bodies fall. The sand darkens. The smell thickens. The amphitheatre trembles with the ecstasy of 50,000 voices, and still the Emperor watches. At last silence falls. The lions prowl among the corpses, muzzles red, their bellies heavy with flesh. The crowd, sated, murmurs in awe. The Emperor reclines at last, a faint smile playing across his lips. Not joy, but satisfaction. A message has been delivered. Rome belongs to him, and fear is the chain that binds it. And yet, as I sit here among the nobles, the stench of blood clinging to my throat, I feel a question burn hotter than the sun above. Why does the Emperor hunger not only for death, but for the fear it plants in every man who dares look upon him? Follow me now, away from the roar of the arena. The sand still, glistens with blood, and the cries of the crowd echo in our ears, yet the Emperor has withdrawn. His carriage rolls through the forum, guarded by soldiers with faces carved from stone. The citizens cheer as he passes, hailing him as god and master. But watch closely. Their smiles are wide, their voices loud, yet their eyes flicker downward. For love cannot be commanded, only fear. The palace rises before us, vast as a city, its marble steps worn by the tread of countless slaves. Torches gutter in the afternoon wind, their smoke twisting like spirits fleeing the light. Statues of emperors past loom over the courtyards, eyes blank, lips stern. The air here is different, heavy with incense, the scent of cedar wood, the faint metallic tang of bronze doors polished each morning. Within the great hall, the Emperor sits once more upon his throne. The marble floor stretches like a mirror beneath him, veined with crimson stone that catches the torchlight and gleams like veins of blood. Senators file in with measured steps, their sandals whispering against the stone. They bow low, their togas trailing, their words rehearsed and hollow. Ave, Caesar, Lord of the world. But listen beneath the surface. Behind the flattery lies a chorus of whispers. In the corners of the hall, men murmur in pairs, their voices low, their eyes darting. One hand clenched too tightly at his side betrays anger. Another's trembling lip reveals dread. Here, in this chamber, alliances are forged and broken not with swords, but with glances. The Emperor surveys them. His eyes move like a blade across their ranks. He knows what they think, that his games were too cruel, that his hunger for fear will one day consume even Rome itself, yet none dare speak it. The memory of lions tearing flesh still clings to their minds. He raises his hand and silence falls. Senators. His voice is calm, soft, yet it carries to every corner. You have witnessed the punishment of traitors. Rome stands strong because Rome does not forgive treachery. Murmurs of assent ripple through the chamber. Some nod, others force smiles. One senator, bold in youth, allows his brow to furrow, just for a heartbeat. The Emperor's eyes catch it. The man pales, realizing too late. The court scribes scratch their wax tablets, recording words that history will twist. Behind them, slaves stand like shadows, silent, waiting, unseen yet listening. Even in whispers, the Emperor has ears. You and I step closer to the throne. Look at him. His face is carved into composure, yet there is a tension in his jaw, a tightness at the corner of his eye. He is not content. The spectacle of the lions has not quenched his hunger. For his true enemy is not the prisoner in chains, but the man in silk who smiles too widely. Night falls, and the palace changes. The great hall empties. Torches hiss in the corridors, their light throwing long shadows upon walls painted with triumphs of past emperors. Yet behind those walls, In secret chambers, the true battles unfold. In one room, a senator meets with a courtier. Their heads bend close, their whispers urgent. He grows mad, one breathes. His cruelty will destroy us all. We must act. The other shakes his head, terror in his eyes. Act? Against him? You saw the lions. Better silence than such a death. Elsewhere, a mistress waits in silken sheets, her eyes lined with kohl, her lips painted red. She knows the emperor will come, as he does each night, seeking solace in flesh to quiet the voices that haunt him. Yet even she trembles, for she has seen him wake in the dark, shouting at shadows, convinced of daggers hidden in the dark, and always the slaves, silent, watchful. They carry wine, they spread perfumes, they hold torches. They see everything, remember everything. It is they who know which senator trembles, which general curses, which mistress plots. And though they cannot speak aloud, their whispers find their way to the emperor's ears. I take you now through a private corridor, narrow and dim. Guards stand every few paces, their armour gleaming, their spears crossed. Beyond lies the emperor's chamber. The door is bronze, heavy as a tomb. Inside, the air is thick with incense, and the walls are hung with tapestries depicting lions devouring men. Here the emperor sits alone. No senators, no crowd, only silence. He holds a goblet of wine, but does not drink. He stares instead at the flame of an oil lamp, his eyes unblinking. I watch him closely. His hand trembles upon the goblet. His lips move, whispering words I cannot hear. Is it a prayer? A curse? Or is he speaking to the ghosts of those he has slain? Suddenly he turns as if sensing a presence. His gaze pierces the darkness, sharp and suspicious. "Who is there?" he demands. No one answers. The guards outside shift uneasily but do not enter. The emperor rises, pacing the chamber. His shadow dances upon the walls, monstrous, distorted. He mutters of senators who plot, of generals who scheme, of gods who conspire. His voice rises, trembling with fury. He seizes the goblet and hurls it against the wall. The wine splashes like blood across the tapestry. And in that moment, I understand. The lions are not for the prisoners, they are for him. To feed their hunger is to feed his illusion of control, to quiet the terror that gnaws at his soul. He fears not the crowd, not the slaves, but the men who sit at his side in the Senate, cloaked in silk and ambition. Yet the question burns, heavier than ever. How long can fear hold an empire? And when the lion's hunger is no longer enough to silence his own, upon whom will he turn next? Come with me once more, for the lion's roars have faded, but their echoes remain. The Colosseum is empty now, its sands still dark with dried blood, its gates closed. Yet the true arena lies not in the amphitheatre, but here, in the palace, in the corridors where whispers cut deeper than blades, where ambition prowls hungrier than any beast. The emperor walks those halls as master, yet also as captive. Every eye follows him, some with reverence, some with terror, some with calculation. He has made fear the foundation of his rule, and for a time it holds. The senators bow lower, the generals speak with trembling voices, the people chant his name as God. But fear, like fire, consumes as much as it illuminates. In the Senate, men whisper behind marble pillars. They remember the games, the prisoners' screams, the lions' bloodied jaws. They ask themselves not whether the emperor is cruel, that much is certain, but whether his cruelty will spare them. One senator recalls how the emperor's gaze lingered too long upon him, how a twitch of his brow nearly betrayed disgust. Another swears he has heard his name muttered in the emperor's private chambers. These whispers gather like storm clouds. The emperor senses it. He does not sleep. At night he paces, muttering to shadows, demanding his guards search the halls for daggers. He summons astrologers to read the heavens, soothsayers to examine the livers of sacrificed beasts. Always the same answer comes, danger within, not from barbarians at the gates, but from the men who dine at his table. And so the circle of fear tightens, senators vanish. Some are summoned to the palace and never return, their estates seized by the treasury. Others are accused of treason, their families paraded in chains. At dawn the lions roar once more, feasting not on nameless prisoners, but on noblemen who yesterday wore the purple stripe of senatorial dignity. The crowd gasps, then cheers, for for they have learned to cheer even when their hearts recoil. Yet the more blood the emperor spills, the more restless Rome becomes. Grain prices rise, soldiers grumble over late pay, distant provinces stir with rebellion, whispers grow bolder. He is mad. He feeds lions with Rome's own lifeblood. I remember one night most vividly. The emperor sat in his chamber, the torchlight painting his face in flickering gold. Before him lay a map of the empire, his finger tracing the provinces. He spoke not to me, nor to his advisers, but to himself, to voices only he could hear. "They are all traitors," he murmured. "All, even those who smile, especially those who smile." His eyes glistened with wine and sleeplessness. "Better they fear me than love me. Fear is eternal. Love dies." But he was wrong. Fear too dies, not in a moment, but in silence, in secret resolve. One by one, men who once trembled began to conspire. Generals in the provinces weary of slaughter, senators who had watched their brothers vanish. Even courtiers, once eager for his favour, grew weary of walking upon the edge of death each day. Behind closed doors, alliances formed. Oaths were whispered over wine cups, not of rebellion, not yet, but of survival. The emperor believed himself untouchable. He believed the lions would guard his throne forever. Yet the beasts he starved and unleashed were nothing compared to the hunger rising among his own men. I will not tell you here how his end came. That belongs to the historians who wrote with careful hands, eager to appease the rulers who followed. Some say he was betrayed in his chamber by his guard. Others say he was struck down upon the road, abandoned by those who had sworn loyalty. What is certain is this: the lions did not save him. The arena that once echoed with the screams of his victims became the stage for his memory. His name was cursed in whispers, his image defaced in secret. Rome moved on, as Rome always does, but the shadow of his reign lingered like a scar. I look back now and ask myself, what remains of a ruler who governs by fear alone? His monuments crumble, his laws are forgotten, his victories fade. Only the memory of cruelty endures, only the sound of lions tearing flesh, the gasps of the crowd, the trembling of senators beneath his gaze. And so I leave you with this question: when fear is the only chain that binds a throne, is it not also the blade that severs it? Story 2. The Sultan who drowned his concubines. Come with me through the great gates of Topkapi, the palace where the empire breathes. Its courtyards are filled with the clang of fountains and the cry of peacocks. Its marble pavements gleam beneath the torchlight. Yet beyond the gilded doors lies a world unseen by the city outside. The harem, veiled in mystery, guarded by silence, whispered of in fear. The air here is heavy with perfumes, rosewater, jasmine, musk. Incense coils through the corridors, masking the closeness of bodies and the weight of secrets. Behind latticed windows sit hundreds of women, concubines, favourites, rivals. Some laugh in jewelled chambers, their silken gowns spilling across cushions. Others weep alone, staring at the moon, dreaming of the homelands they were stolen from. And above them all, unseen but felt, looms the Sultan. His will is law, his pleasure fate, his suspicion death. The women know it well. Their beauty is their crown, but also their peril. A glance from the Sultan can raise one to glory, or condemn her to the shadows forever. On this night, I watched the women prepare for the banquet. Jewels glittered in their hair, their gowns shimmered with threads of gold. Laughter floated through the hall, though it trembled at the edges, for each knew that behind every smile lay rivalry sharpened like a dagger. A touch too warm, a glance too bold, and whispers would coil like smoke. The Sultan entered at last, his robes heavy with embroidery, his turban crowned with a ruby that caught the firelight. He spoke little, but his eyes wandered. One woman caught his gaze too long, a concubine of Circassian birth, her beauty unmatched, her laughter brighter than the rest. She bowed low, yet I saw the flicker of another's glare. A favourite whose place at his side had now been threatened. It began with whispers. They said the Circassian girl had passed letters, that she spoke in secret to men forbidden to the harem, that her smile carried betrayal. The Sultan, proud and jealous, listened. And in his silence, suspicion grew. The harem shifted. Laughter grew brittle. Perfumes could not mask the stench of fear. The eunuchs, black-robed and silent, watched more closely. The girl smiled still, yet behind her smile I saw a tremor, for she too knew the stories. For in this palace, when a woman was accused of betrayal, her fate was not the blade, nor the chain, nor even exile. It was the cord of silk, or worse, the water. The fountains of the harem which sang sweetly in the courtyards could also drown the voice of the condemned. Beneath their beauty lay pools deeper than they seemed, pools that swallowed secrets forever. That night, as the lamps guttered and the palace slept, I heard footsteps in the corridor. Guards moved swiftly. Eunuchs carried no lamps, their faces grim. A door opened, muffled cries followed, then silence. When dawn came, the Circassian girl was gone. In the courtyard, the fountain still sang, but if you listened closely, the water carried a whisper, the gasp of a final breath, the splash of silken fabric sinking beneath the surface. The women knew. They did not speak. They bowed lower, laughed louder, painted their faces brighter. But their eyes told the truth. That beauty in this palace was not salvation. It was the first step toward the water. Follow me deeper now, beyond the fountains where the water still carries its secret. The harem may sing with laughter in daylight, but at night, the palace whispers louder than any voice. You can hear it in the shuffle of eunuchs' feet, in the rustle of silk as concubines hurry down corridors, in the low prayers of servants who cross themselves before passing the doors of the Sultan's chambers. The Sultan, master of this empire, sits at the heart of it all. By day, he is seen in marble halls lined with mosaics, the air perfumed with rosewater, the floors echoing with the bowing steps of viziers and generals. They present him petitions, victories, and gifts from the corners of the world. They speak of loyalty, but their eyes betray caution. Each word is chosen like a stone placed upon a scale. Too heavy, and it tips towards suspicion. Too light, and it reveals weakness. But by night, when the lamps burn low, he withdraws to the harem. There his throne is not marble, but velvet cushions. His courtiers are not men of state, but women cloaked in fragrance and rivalry. Yet even here, suspicion rules him. He studies their laughter, their stolen glances, their sudden silences when his gaze falls upon them. The drowning of the Circassian girl did not end whispers, it birthed new ones. Some said she had indeed conspired with a guard, slipping him tokens through the lattice windows. Others insisted she was innocent, her only crime being beauty that outshone the Sultan's favourite. No one dared speak. Aloud, but the truth hardly mattered. In this palace, rumour itself was executioner. I watched as rival factions within the harem sharpened their daggers in silence. The favourites, jewelled and pampered, whispered against the new arrivals. Young girls brought from distant lands, still learning the language, still bewildered by the maze of courtyards. The elder concubines, long past their beauty, whispered against them all, seeking to preserve what little influence remained. Each faction sent gifts to eunuchs, bribes hidden in golden bracelets, promises murmured in dark corridors. For in this world, a eunuch's silence could be as deadly as his words. And always, above the women, loomed the Sultan's mother, the Valid Sultan, a figure draped in silks of mourning black. Her eyes saw all. It was said that no concubine could rise without her blessing, and none could fall without her hand guiding it. Some claimed it was she who whispered against the Circassian, fearing the girl might birth a son who would rival her own grandson. True or not, the women bowed low when she passed, pressing their foreheads to the floor, their smiles stiff with terror. The Sultan himself grew restless. I saw him one evening in the audience chamber, pacing beneath domes painted with golden stars. His vizier approached with scrolls of state, yet the Sultan brushed them aside. "They conspire," he muttered. "Not in the Senate, not in the armies, as in my own house. My harem is my empire, and even there betrayal seeps like poison." The vizier bowed low, careful to hide his eyes. "My lord," he said softly, "perhaps stricter watch." He trailed off, for he knew what stricter watch meant. The Sultan nodded slowly. "The fountains are deep," he whispered, almost to himself, "and the water never speaks." After that, the drownings came swifter. A girl accused of a laughter with a guard was gone by dawn. Another who lingered too long near the Sultan's brother's chambers disappeared after sunset. No trials, no cries, only silence, and the endless murmur of water. The palace learned to mask its fear. Banquets glittered with gold, music filled the halls, women danced with smiles painted brighter than the gems in their hair. But behind the painted lids, their eyes shifted. Behind the music, their hearts beat faster. Each knew her turn could come with a whisper, with the brush of suspicion, with the faintest flicker of envy, and so the harem became less a garden of pleasure and more an empire of shadows. I stood one evening by the great fountain in the second courtyard. The water sparkled under moonlight, its song sweet as ever. Yet in the rippling surface I thought I saw faces, pale, frightened, lips parted in one last gasp. Perhaps it was only the trick of moonlight, or perhaps the dead do not rest when drowned in silence. Come with me now, for the fountains still flow, but the laughter of the harem has grown hollow. The corridors of Topkapi gleam. With the same marble, the same gilded doors swing wide, the same music drifts from painted halls, yet beneath it all lies a silence heavy as stone. The drownings did not end the whispers. They multiplied. Every disappearance became a story. One woman swore she saw pale fingers beneath the water. Another claimed she heard cries in the night carried through the drains. A eunuch, trembling, told me he had dreamt of the Circassian girl standing at his bedside. Her gown soaked, her lips blue, her eyes wide with unblinking terror. Whether dreams or truth, the palace breathed them as if they were air. The Sultan grew restless. He no longer entered the harem with ease. His steps slowed, his gaze darted. Where once he had sought beauty, now he sought betrayal. Even the most innocent glance became a dagger in his eyes. He commanded more drownings, each swifter than the last, until the fountains themselves seemed to run red in memory. The women learned to live in masks. They laughed louder, bowed deeper, painted their lips brighter. They sang songs of devotion to the Sultan, though their voices cracked. Yet even painted masks slip. One favourite, trembling as she poured wine, spilled a drop upon his robe. Her cry was louder than the splash. She begged forgiveness, her face pressed to the floor. But the Sultan's silence was heavier than her tears. By dawn the fountain sang once more and she was gone. The Valid Sultan, his mother watched it all with eyes like obsidian. Some said she guided his hand, whispering which girl to silence, which to preserve. Others claimed she trembled too, for though she ruled the harem, she too was flesh and blood beneath the Sultan's gaze. But she never spoke against him. She only watched, and in her silence the drownings multiplied. Yet fear does not last forever. It corrodes the chain that binds, until even slaves whisper rebellion. Eunuchs who once carried silken cords began to falter. Some wept in secret. Others accepted bribes to spare a girl for one more night. Rival factions within the harem turned from intrigue to survival, forming pacts in the shadows. And in the city beyond the palace walls, the people began to murmur. They spoke of a sultan who drowned his women, who trusted no one, who heard voices in the fountains. The markets carried the whispers, the mosques repeated them, until they reached the ears of men with swords. I remember the last night clearly. The palace was thick with storm clouds, thunder rolling across the Bosporus. The Sultan sat alone in his chamber, the air heavy with incense, the floor littered with scrolls he had torn in rage. He muttered of betrayal, of enemies in every shadow, of women who plotted even as they smiled. He swore he heard them beneath the fountains, their voices rising with the water. Suddenly he rose, seized by fury. "Let them drown," he cried, his voice echoing against the domes. "Let them all drown until the water itself is silent." But silence cannot be commanded. By dawn the storm had passed, but so too had his reign. The guards whispered of poison slipped into his cup, of a cord pulled across his throat, of betrayal from those he trusted most. Others claimed he died raving, staring into a basin of water, clawing at reflections only he could see. The truth, like the women he condemned, was drowned with him. The fountains still sang. They sing even now, sweet and clear in the courtyards of Topkapi. Tourists walk past, listening to the laughter of children, the rustle of trees. But if you stand alone at night, if you listen not with ears but with the marrow of your bones, you may hear something else. A gasp, a cry, a whisper rising from the water. And so I leave you with this question. What empire can endure when its ruler turns his fountains into graves, when beauty itself becomes a sentence, and silence is bought with water?